Alright, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel, and today we're taking a look at one of the most dystopian things I think I've ever really seen, you know? I mean, most of us, we live here in the United States, right? I mean, I look at my channel analytics and whatnot. The majority of my audience lives in the United States, so this is something that's going to affect you too, and I think you're going to agree that it's probably pretty dystopian as well. But obviously, we have a pretty unique issue here in the United States, right? With mass shootings and realistically, like, mass casualty incidents altogether. We kind of have like a really bad problem with it. I mean, for instance, other countries, other developed countries may have like one mass shooting every decade, maybe one every year if they're like really unlucky. But here in the United States, in any given year, we have literally hundreds of mass shootings. I mean, it's to the point where it's a pretty uniquely American problem. And while it does happen from time to time in other places, it never happens on the scale that it happens here. The sad reality of American life is on any given day, you can get on social media and see news from multiple different mass shootings in different areas of the country. That has happened to me multiple times. Like, I've gotten on Twitter at like, I don't know, noon or 1 o'clock, and there's been news of a shooting in like Texas where like 3 people got killed. Then by dinner time the same day, there's another shooting in like Massachusetts where 6 people got killed. It's pretty insane and it's pretty depressing, but apparently our representatives, the legislators, have decided that they're finally going to push forward some legislation that aims to help defend us from these kinds of situations, that aims to help protect us from having to deal with these problems. And it's honestly one of the creepiest, most dystopian things I've ever heard in my life. I mean, the fact that we even have to address this issue in the first place because it's such a big problem is already really sad and like mentally draining. But can you imagine the idea of getting an Amber Alert about a mass shooting in your local area? The House passed legislation Wednesday that would create an Amber Alert-like system for active shooter situations. In a 260 to 169 vote, lawmakers approved the Active Shooter Alert Act, which was sponsored by Reps. David Cicilline and Fred Upton. The bill now heads to the Senate. Nearly all votes in opposition were Republicans, with the exception of Democratic Representative Ron Kind of Wisconsin, who is not running for re-election. 43 Republicans voted in favor of the measure. The measure would allow law enforcement to deploy the alert system in emergency situations and notify the public about active shooters. Alright, so if you're somehow not understanding the situation, right, I'm assuming you probably know what an Amber Alert is and like the emergency alert system, right? So I don't know how it is in other countries. I would assume a lot of other countries have a similar system, but here in the United States, in case of like a mass crisis or like emergency, we have an alert system that can deploy to all TVs, all radios, all cell phones, and basically can alert the public en masse about a situation unfolding. So let's say, like, because here in Ohio, we have this happen especially during the spring a lot, like tornado warnings. So if there's a tornado on the ground or like the conditions are favorable for a tornado to touch down, you'll get this alert on your phone that's like really loud and obnoxious, and it'll tell you like what counties or what places are kind of under the warning. We also have something called Amber Alerts, which is like if a child is kidnapped or something, it'll basically like give everybody in the area a warning, give you like a basic description of the person that may have kidnapped them, like a vehicle make, model, and like license plate sometimes. Basically what this is intended to do is to create massive amounts of awareness to a situation at once. And this is essentially the same thing here, right? So for instance, I don't know, if you're on like a college campus and some person walks in with an AR and starts shooting everybody, the police would send out a notification that goes across radios, across TVs, and across phones that basically tells you like, hey, there's an active shooter at this location, shelter in place if you're in the area, basically giving you the information that may honestly save your life. And that's what's really the most sad about this situation is, am I the only one that thinks that this is just like super dystopian and horrible? I mean, we live in a country where you have to get like a mass shooting alert on your phone, right? Like, that's so terrifying to think about. Like, am I the only one that kind of like sees situations like this? And it makes me more afraid to go out in public, right? Like, I don't know, over the last few years, I've gotten like this hyper awareness to my surroundings when I'm outside, because there is a legitimate and genuine possibility that at any given moment, somebody can just walk in there and start killing everybody. You know, I could be shopping at Walmart just trying to get some groceries or like trying to get a cable for my controller or something, and some random stranger has a bad day and just shows up in there with a gun and just starts killing people. Like, that is really the world we live in. That is really the country that we live in. Am I the only one who doesn't want to live in a world like that? Like, I feel like people should see something like this, and it should create like some urgency urgency to try to fix these problems? Like, does this not create enough urgency with the American public? Like, we literally have to have Amber Alerts for mass shootings. And in a situation where this does pop up on your phone, like, what do you really do? You know what I mean? I would be so terrified if I got a notification like this on my phone. I mean, I would love to imagine that I'd probably try to act and get out of the situation and like save my own life, but I mean, I honestly don't know, man. It's easier said than done, I'm sure. Cicelyne and Upton said that it could be used in situations like what unfolded after the mass shooting in Highland Park, Illinois on the 4th of July, where the suspected gunman was at large for 8 hours and was able to drive to Wisconsin. Another situation when the alert system could have been used was in April, when a suspect was at large for about 29 hours after allegedly shooting people in a subway station in Brooklyn. In active shooter events, authorities have had to resort to using Twitter and social media to tell the public about the situation, Cicelyne said. Which, obviously, you can see the problem with that, right? Not everybody uses social media. Most people at this point have a smartphone, or at least a phone that can receive an update like this. Or they've got like a TV or a radio in their car or something, you know, that can get these kinds of alerts. So the scope in which people could be alerted about a mass casualty incident like this could legitimately be expanded dramatically with this kind of legislation. So personally, I do think it's a good idea. I mean, it is a big enough problem in our country at this point that creating a system like this is actually probably pretty necessary, considering our lawmakers and our public is just not really intent on fixing this issue, I don't think. I mean, we've been having mass shootings for like 25 years regularly in this country, and there hasn't really been anything done about it, so I figure that this is probably the best we're really gonna get. As sad as that really is to say, I think this is probably the best we're gonna get when it comes down to it. But what really confuses me is why so many people, primarily Republicans, voted against this. Now, in a lot of situations like this, right, the reason that politicians end up voting against something like this is because other things they don't support get bundled into it. So like here in the United States, like if we have an issue, instead of just passing legislation that directly addresses that issue and that issue only, our politicians like to try to sneak in clauses basically that just add other things that they personally want for their side or their team into the whole thing, which makes all the other politicians on the other side, aka Republicans in this instance, be like, oh, you know, we're not voting for this, we're not supporting this because you're trying to sneak in these things we don't agree with. I don't know if that's what happened in this situation or if just legitimately 169 people in the, you know, Congress, or I should say the House at this point, but 169 people in the House were just like, no, I don't want to vote for this because I don't think it's a good idea. I don't really know, but I mean, if this is really the best they can come up with, like, I'll take it. I would rather get a notification that somebody is killing 30 people around me than to have to hope that I'm following the police on Twitter. But can't we as a country come together and agree that maybe we should address the crisis itself so we don't have to have this in place? Like, why are we so content with just people getting murdered all the time, right? It kind of blows my mind. Like, it's gotten so numbing in America at this point, and I'm guilty of this too, but like when you get news about a mass shooting, it's not even surprising anymore, bro. Like if you turn on the news, for instance, like when I was a little kid and like the Virginia Tech massacre happened, like I was mind blown. Like the idea of something like that happening was just like unfathomable because it wasn't really as common yet. But now, like I said, you can see it multiple times a day on Twitter. So like it just, your brain's kind of turned off to it. It's really sad, man. Like this is one of the most dystopian things I've seen, having to create an active shooter alert system. You know, it seems like one of those things you'd read in a dystopian book. Like if someone made like a book or a movie like kind of mocking American culture, it feels like this would be something they added in. I don't know, I just wanted to talk about this because I think it's pretty crazy. It's pretty sad, man. And people on Twitter were also like this too. It was trending and whatnot. I was stunned when I saw it. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're brand new around here on the channel. Follow me over on Twitter and Twitch at @SubToOptimus. Make sure to check out Shoptimus down below. And until my next video, guys, this is Optimus, well, talking about the active shooter alert system and signing out.